No one will ever hear me complain about my life because there's nothing to complain about, and I will not stand to give my time to those that complain about theirs, for I have no time to give. As I am focused in the betterment of myself, I will do others no harm. For my conversations with God will be the clearest in the absence of all other desires. And by trusting myself, I will be the source of inspiration for those who are burdened with it. So, this is a little affirmation video that I have right on my page, and whenever I need a little motivation, I just start reciting myself. So you know how when you were kids, you would go to school, sing the national anthem in the morning and like say the pledge, and somehow you just remember the pledge by heart? That's how you should be with your own affirmations. And of course, it's easier for me to recite that because it's in my own voice. I've played it 1,000 times and I wrote it. I actually did it so that I can play it every day. And if anyone can benefit from this, then why not, right? Why not leverage on this? Make it your own, take inspiration from it, write your own words, record in your own voice. Because your voice is the frequency that you're born with, and it's like listening to a command from your higher self. This frequency that you're in. Your voice is the speller, the wizard to creating your own life. So make sure to make full use of it. But if you don't want to, you can just listen to mine. Is this eyelash over here? So right now, let's go into the charts. I'm about to check out December's market. Right now it's Tuesday. I've skipped Monday, just hanging out, taking it slow because it's, the first day of the month. Yeah, as well as the first week, so it's also NFP week. Usually Q1, quarter one of the month, it's the consolidating period. So you're looking for price, in sideways action that shows you a bit more clues of what it wants to do for the entire of December. Okay, so I have all this artificial light shining on my face just so that people can see me in the dark because this camera is not good. Please drop me some like webcam cameras that can help beautify things up, or like better quality. If I turn off the light, like I'm just a dark shadow. So monthly candle, you can see that for November it was very bullish all the way up, one directional, very little wick on the top and bottom. There's a lot of things that I added. I was testing out a theory, and so there's a lot of like backtesting stuff. Okay, so we have to start off with the monthly candle since we're already in December. I have marked out previous month's high and low for all three of them. So what I like to do is just look at all three and then put out all the points that I'm looking at, so that when I go down into the smaller time frame, for example, if one is touching on its previous month's high, the other could be touching on its previous week's high, and I would know that they're both meeting their own premium PD array. So draw all three charts at once. And then the next marking I have, because this entire November is so large, I want something in between the entire range, right? From here to here, from here to here. So in between we have the previous month's high of October. So right now what you can see is that this is a fair value gap in the monthly time frame. From the high point of October to the low point of December, that is still being created, right? So big space, big trading range over here for ES, a smaller trading range for NQ. As you can see, we already have price here opening. We have NQ price opening here and heading higher into that all-time high we have been talking about for the past few weeks. And then October's high is right here. I've also marked out the 50% of this entire red wick as well as here. For Dow Jones, Here we have the week of October and 50% right here. So overall, we have this entire range from previous month's high to October's monthly high. For all three of them, this is what I'm looking at. I'm gonna remove this one. Okay, so what I'm gonna do right now is just put it down. This is for the news. I have to pull out the news. So monthly, all three assets. Okay, for those who like it as an ASMR, I'm just gonna leave my typing sound here. Enjoy. Alright, so this week it's NFP Friday, right? And it's Q1, so I'm anticipating consolidating week and seek and destroy type of market, what's it called? Market profile. So I would anticipate for price to constantly be taking out highs and then going down to take lows, highs again and down to take lows. So it's not really giving much of a one-sided move. So Monday has already played out right now. It's in 7 minutes. We're about to have Tuesday's 10 a.m. JOLTS job opening. Right? And then Wednesday on the PM session, we have Fed Chair Powell speaking. So Wednesday AM session, I probably wouldn't expect the big move, maybe more consolidation. And then Thursday, we might get an expansion, but a consolidating expansion. And lastly, we have Friday non-farm payroll, where it may just set the tone for the rest of the month on the directional bias. All right, so here we go. Now we're going back to the charts and looking at weekly. All right, so we have that divergence, right, previously. Let me just delete any of this stuff that comes up because I was just back testing the silver bullet method for London time zone. I realized that this daylight saving thing is really like tripping me up. I can't stay up 1 hour later with the same willpower. Like by the time I'm supposed to trade, it's already 11 p.m. That's no excuses, but it's just the fact that I've been waking up at 7, 8 in the morning and drinking coffee, going to the gym, getting shit done. And this is why by the time I show up to the markets, I'm zen out. I'm like, chill. And this is what you guys come for. But this is after all day of working my brains, and sometimes my words are not going to come out as quickly as my brain is thinking them. So works for both of us. So basically the point is I'm trying to trade more London, and if the back testing works out and I'm gonna forward test it, I will record it in the video as well. So maybe by then I'm a bit more hype. But let's see, I really like this midnight DJ kind of vibe. And also I've been watching Rhythm and Flow, so don't mind me if I'm trying to rhyme everything. I love it. I love it. So you can see that we have divergence. Here's a high and then a high. Here's a high and a lower high. And we're expecting this previous month's high to be taken out. And lastly, we have a lower high and a higher high. So there's divergence in this market right now. I'm just gonna make more points. So previous month's high is in line with previous week's high. So I'll just mark out previous week's low. Previous week's low. Okay, so for anyone who's like constantly getting distracted when you're looking at the markets, I would highly suggest that you play some affirmations in the background and try to recite it. This will really keep your brain like active. Okay. So here we have previous week's high, previous week's low, low over here, high, and then high, and wait, previous week's high, and then previous week's low. Okay, so I'm just gonna record it down as well. Okay, and make some observations. So we can already see that on the first day of December, ES has taken out previous month's high, while the other two have not. The divergence is still on price right now, so let's see how it plays out, whether any of them are going to give us a sign of reversal. So weekly, you can see that ES and NQ is in a green candle, which means they're above their opening price, while Dow Jones is underneath it. So that is divergence in itself. Okay, and on the daily time frame, you can actually see that right down here we have the blue part, which is the last quarter of the year. We're already in the last month of the last quarter, and what we have gotten so far is an expansion. You can see the opening of this quarter is right here, and if you look left at all three of them, over here and then over here, right, we have an expansion in the entire quarter. So here's a daily fair value gap right underneath price. We can see a little reversal when it comes to Dow Jones because it's a red candle on the Monday, while it's a green candle for NQ and a green candle for ES. Okay, so let me just start off by copying that. Daily. Okay, let's see what else I can find. We have daily inverted fair value gap over here for ES. So we're just trying to find, the PD arrays above and below price wherever price is at. So right now, above price is previous day's high, and then below price we have previous month's high, and then the new week opening gap, and then daily FVG. Okay, and you can see that NQ has already taken out a previous week's high, so this itself is a resistance turn support, and then above it is the previous month's high, and lastly we have previous week's low underneath of Dow Jones and previous month's high above of Dow Jones. So all I'm doing right now is just looking for levels and then waiting for price. This is what I do every time I'm here in the charts. So if you have been watching with me for a while now, you know what kind of points that I look out for, and everything has to happen at the Q zone. It has to happen at a specific time where New York is in play or London. I don't trade Asia. Okay, so you see this nice little turning back on ES, and then for Dow Jones, it has already broken the structure of all the lows and gave us this nice little pullback higher before looking like it's about to drop. So to me, right, Dow Jones is the one that's kind of leading the pack. So it's usually the first one that turns before the rest of them does. So now I have this sign that price wants to go lower. Where do I think that it will reach into? So for now, it's this daily fair value gap here on YM, Dow Jones. And then potentially the closing of this entire fair value gap on Nasdaq. And then lastly, a fair value gap here. H4 bullish fair value gap. This is also H4 bullish fair value gap. But when it's so big, I like to refer to the left. So on the left, what I can see is this wick, right? So I just minimize it into this wick, which overlaps the fair value gap. And it sits right underneath the previous wick's low. So this would be a good level for me. And this is a bit too squeezy, right? Let me just look for another level on the daily. Yep, I'm gonna go for previous day's low. Because the daily level is always more in favor for me. So here is the last divergence before this push higher. So this is also a liquidity point. Alright, so I'm just gonna write it down. Sometimes it happens like that and I have to type everything again. So right now, why I'm anticipating this drop is because there's already divergence above price, right? The larger time frame one and then the smaller time frame one, where the candle of Dow Jones was different from the other two. And then now going down, we can see a break of structure over here already for Dow Jones. Yep. And I still think that NQ is so near into the previous month high. And it opened this week with a new week opening gap. Like it's in a rush to push higher. And also one more thing is, ICT just released a video on November about what he expect NQ to do. And I realized that whenever he posts a video about a direction, they tend to just run into it with not much signs of entry. Like they wouldn't give you a chance to enter. A lot of his content that he put out there, especially when you're following his, 2022 mentorship and all that, 2024 now, you would see that when he says something, it's not part of the entries, the safe entries that he taught you to use, but it would just pull price all the way up. So what does he know? That's what I'm wondering. So anyway, moving on. H4 done. Let's go into H1. My favorite time frame. Alright, so there's a minute 15 fair value gap there that it reversed from that I was looking at. And then here is there a divergence? Yep. I was looking at this divergence. Yeah, last week's divergence. Okay. Alright, so on H1, I get a big clear view of what price has done with the highs and the lows. And this is where I look out for divergence. Okay, so we have this high up here, right? Our previous one is right there. So you can see lower high, higher high, higher high. So here's the trigger, and then a big move down, and then here's a fair value gap on H1 that price just reached into after the news release. Right now it's 10:09, 9 minutes after the news release. Okay, nice. I love watching this. 50% point. What else can I see? Okay, so here's a Asian to London to New York high. Here's a Asian to London to New York. Asian, London, New York. All right, so you can see, right, like price is just doing its own thing, right? We have high, higher high, higher high, high, higher high, lower high, high, lower high, higher high. All three of them are doing different things. So this to me is not like a confirmed market. So this to me is very seek and destroy. Like one of them is always sweeping out liquidity. Which one is it gonna be, right? So I'm in no rush to put myself into the markets. Look at how wickedy weak it is right now. I'm gonna log this in to the journal. I feel like journal really helps me with slowing down, right? Like confirming your thoughts so that you can stand behind what you see in the market and feel deserving of it when it's a win, you know? And feel justified when it's a loss. Okay. Alrighty. Alright, so now we're gonna do a little update of what happened. I was playing back the previous video and I realized that, see, what I said about ICT, just calling it out, right? On Monday, he has already called that price would want to reach into its own all-time high for Nasdaq. And you see, without like much hesitance, other than just hitting on this new week opening gap and like dropping a bit lower, it took it out with a lot of strength. So that's one thing I learned from him as well. If price opens up with a new week opening gap, it shows that it is very excited to want to reach into the highs. So I still don't know how he knows about the speed, because every time he posts something, it goes up with speed. Okay, so now we're just going to study. The last point, we actually marked out this divergence, right? So ES got its high created on Asian session. At that point of time, we were looking where price started dropping down. And then over here, we have London session on NQ being the highest point for that day. And lastly, for Dow Jones, we have the New York AM session. So after this divergence happened, we have ES dropping down, taking out New York AM session from the low from Monday, and then NQ left it alone, and lastly Dow Jones also took it out. Alright, so this itself, another divergence, push market higher. There's a lot of resistance as it was just bouncing around this new week opening gap, came back down, tapped near the 2 standard deviation of Asian session, tap into this H1 fair value gap before going higher. So both of them tap into the H1 fair value gap at the same time. So this is my choice of trading, where I wanted price to give me way more pullback before I consider entering it. But for some other people who would take on more trades, right, during the week, this would be a good entry. We have divergence, overlapping with H1 bullish fair value gap. So divergence between previous day's New York and current day New York AM session. And then we have intra divergence between this New York session. So we have low, lower low, higher low, while on NQ we have low, higher low, higher low. These three. Okay. And then it pushed up into previous month's high. So for the entire of Wednesday, it was one directional. Since the opening at 12, London gave a small little pullback, did not take out the Asian range low, and then pushed higher all the way into New York PM session. So this entire thing is one directional. Dow Jones is the one that gives us the sign of what it wants to do. So right now Dow Jones is just waiting for them to catch up. But it's still the first week of December. I don't have any trades taken. I'm not in a rush to put myself in the markets. Week 2 and 3 are usually the better ones. However, this is December, you know, just take it easy, study, go back to some of the old content and study again. Right? So now all three of them have already taken out previous month's high. So what I'm doing is just studying price action, seeing how price reacts at all of the gaps, especially the 50%. So on this hourly 50% gap, which is right where this line is, I just want to see how price respected, and obviously it did not respect at all. And then for M15 as well, it's just hanging around on the lower half of this fair value gap. So ultimately, if I am bullish in the market, I'll be looking for price to pull down more before taking a long entry. And since Wednesday has given such a large range expansion, you can see that we have fair value gap being left open. So I would like to see some of this being filled up, right? While Dow Jones is just stalling and waiting. And if you find this analysis helpful, leave it down in the comment section below. I will see you guys again next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.